In February 2017, two 8th grade friends, Libby German and Abigail Williams, went for a walk on Delphi's Monon High Bridge Trail. They never came home. The next day, their bodies were found nearby. What followed became one of America's most watched and discussed modern murder investigations. Introduction and victim's background. Libby German, known as Libby, was 14 years old in February 2017. She was an 8th grade student at Delphi Community Middle School in Delphi, Indiana. Friends and teachers described her as bright, outgoing, and creative. She enjoyed photography, sports, and spending time with her family. Libby lived with her grandparents, who were her legal guardians, and she was close with her older sister, Kelsey. Abigail Williams, known as Abby, was 13 years old and also an 8th grader at Delphi Community Middle School. She was recognized for her friendly personality, kindness, and love for the arts. Abby enjoyed playing saxophone in the school band, creating crafts, and drawing. She lived with her mother, Anna, and stepfather, and spent time with extended family in the small community. The two girls became close friends through school and extracurricular activities. Both were typical teenagers who enjoyed sports, hanging out with friends, and posting updates on social media. They were nearly inseparable, often spending afternoons together. Their bond was visible to classmates, teachers, and their families, who frequently saw them together at school functions or in town. Delphi, Indiana, where the girls lived, is a small rural community in Carroll County, with fewer than 3,000 residents in 2017. Known for its quiet neighborhoods, local traditions, and historic landmarks, Delphi had long been considered a safe environment. Violent crime was rare, and the town was widely regarded as a place where children could grow up without the fears associated with larger cities. One of the most notable local attractions is the Monon High Bridge, a historic railroad bridge that stretches across Deer Creek. Though no longer used for trains, it had become part of a popular walking trail. Despite its scenic views, the bridge was known for its steep height, missing railroad ties, and narrow path which could make crossing difficult. It remained a favored spot for photographs and outdoor gatherings, especially among local teenagers. Libby and Abby shared an interest in exploring the outdoors and documenting their activities on social media. Libby, in particular, often used Snapchat to capture moments with her friends. On the afternoon of February 13, 2017, the two girls planned to spend time together on the Monon High Bridge Trail. It was a routine decision, the kind of outing that many families considered ordinary in a community like Delphi. This friendship, their lives, and the ordinary details of that February day are central to understanding why the events that followed would devastate not just their families but the entire Delphi community, and eventually draw the attention of people across the United States. The day of February 13, 2017. February 13, 2017 was a Monday, but students in the Delphi Community School District had the day off. It was scheduled as a snow makeup day, and since the winter had been mild, classes were not in session. For many families, it felt like an extra weekend day. For Libby German and Abigail Williams, it meant an opportunity to spend time together. That morning, the girls arranged to meet and spend the day as friends often did. After spending time at Libby's home, they decided to go outside. The Monon High Bridge Trail, part of the Delphi Historic Trail System, was a short drive away and provided a familiar setting. The trail was popular with locals, including teenagers who often visited the old bridge to take photos or simply enjoy the view. Around 1:35 p.m., Libby's older sister, Kelsey, dropped the two girls off near the trail entrance by County Road 300 North. Kelsey later recalled seeing them walk toward the trail as she drove away. It was understood that the girls would be picked up later in the afternoon by Libby's father, Derek. The weather that day was mild for February, with temperatures in the 40s. The girls walked along the trail toward the Monon High Bridge. At some point, Libby began recording on her phone. Evidence later released by law enforcement showed that she captured both photographs and video. One of the last known images of the girls came from Libby's Snapchat account, showing Abby walking on the wooden beams of the bridge. This image would become one of the most widely circulated photographs in the case. Sometime after 2 p.m., Libby also recorded a short video clip of a man walking toward the girls on the bridge. In the video, the man wore blue jeans, a navy jacket, and a cap. His hands were in his pockets as he walked steadily in their direction. Later, a short audio clip extracted from the same recording revealed a male voice saying, "Down the hill." These recordings would become crucial pieces of evidence, though only portions have been made public. When Derek arrived at the designated pickup point around 3:15 p.m., the girls were not there. He waited for a short time before contacting other family members. Calls to the girls' phones went unanswered. At first, relatives believed they might have been delayed on the trail. Soon, concern grew, and by late afternoon, family members and volunteers began searching the area. Local law enforcement was notified that evening. Officers and community members conducted searches along the trail, near the bridge, and around Deer Creek. As daylight faded, the search became more urgent, with flashlights and vehicles assisting in the effort. The Carroll County Sheriff's Office coordinated with the Delphi Police Department and Indiana State Police. Despite extensive searching on the night of February 13th, the girls were not located. Authorities suspended the search late that evening, planning to resume with greater resources the following morning. Family members returned home anxious and uncertain, but still hopeful the girls would be found safe. The events of February 13th marked the last time Liberty German and Abigail Williams were seen alive. What had begun as an ordinary day off school became the start of an investigation that would extend for years, capturing attention across Indiana and far beyond. Discovery of the crime scene. On the morning of February 14, 2017, search efforts resumed in Delphi. Law enforcement, firefighters, volunteers, and family members returned to the Monon High Bridge Trail area. The search was now coordinated more formally, with multiple agencies involved. Authorities expanded the search zone beyond the immediate trailhead and bridge, covering nearby woods, fields, and waterways. Just after noon, volunteers discovered two bodies about half a mile from the Monon High Bridge. The location was near Deer Creek, on private property not far from the trail. Authorities quickly responded to the scene, securing the area and calling in additional resources. Law enforcement confirmed that the remains were those of Liberty German and Abigail Williams. The discovery was devastating for the small community. Hopes that the girls might have simply wandered off or become lost were replaced with grief and fear. At a press conference that evening, officials described the case as a double homicide but released few details. Investigators did not share the cause of death, citing the ongoing investigation and the need to protect evidence. The immediate focus shifted to securing the scene and collecting forensic evidence. Investigators from the Indiana State Police, Carroll County Sheriff's Office, Delphi Police Department, and the FBI collaborated. They combed the area for physical evidence, documented the location, and gathered anything that might point to the identity of the perpetrator. The announcement of the discovery and the confirmation of murder shocked the nation. Delphi, a town with little history of violent crime, suddenly became the center of a major criminal investigation. Vigils were quickly organized and schools provided counseling services for students and staff. The families of Libby and Abby faced overwhelming grief but also called for the public's help in finding answers. From that point forward, the investigation into the Delphi murders became one of the most high-profile cases in Indiana's history. The discovery of the crime scene not only changed the lives of the victims, families, but also drew the attention of national media outlets, true crime communities, and countless people across the United States who would follow the case in the years to come. Early investigation and evidence. The early investigation into the murders of Liberty German and Abigail Williams began immediately after the discovery of their bodies. From the start, law enforcement agencies recognized the complexity of the case and the importance of carefully handling evidence. The Indiana State Police, Carroll County Sheriff's Office, Delphi Police Department, and the FBI all became directly involved, forming a multi-agency task force. One of the most significant aspects of the investigation came from Liberty German herself. Before she and Abby encountered the suspect, Libby had activated her phone's video camera. Authorities later confirmed that Libby managed to capture both video and audio of a man walking toward the girls on the Monon High Bridge. This act provided investigators with crucial evidence and was widely praised as a moment of bravery. The still images released from Libby's phone showed a man wearing a navy blue jacket, blue jeans, and a cap. His hands were in his pockets as he walked across the bridge's narrow planks. Although the image was blurry and of limited quality, it became the central visual reference for the case. In addition to the photograph, investigators also released a short audio clip. The voice of a man can be heard saying, "Down the hill." This phrase, though only a few seconds long, gave authorities and the public their first direct evidence of the suspect's presence and tone of voice. Officials noted that the released clip was part of a longer recording that contained additional material, though most of it has not been made public. The combination of visual and audio evidence led investigators to believe that the girls had encountered their killer on the trail, and that Libby's recording preserved critical information about him. Authorities released these clips strategically, hoping public recognition would generate tips. Following the release of the suspect's image and voice, investigators received an overwhelming response. Within the first year, thousands of tips and leads poured in from across Indiana and the wider United States. Law enforcement established dedicated tip lines, email accounts, and even physical mailboxes for submissions. Every piece of information was logged and reviewed, though many proved to be dead ends. Investigators also gathered physical evidence from the crime scene itself. While specific details have largely been withheld to protect the case, it was confirmed that forensic material was collected. Items included fibers, possible DNA traces, and other materials that could link the suspect to the location. Because the cause of death and exact crime scene details were kept confidential, speculation circulated in media and online forums, though law enforcement consistently reminded the public to rely only on verified updates. From the earliest days, the FBI assisted with profiling the suspect. Behavioral analysts worked to create a general psychological and demographic profile based on the suspect's movements, appearance, and interaction with the victims. Officials described the killer as likely familiar with the Delphi area, capable of moving around without drawing attention, and possibly blending into the small-town environment. Community response was immediate and widespread. Candlelight vigils were held. Purple ribbons appeared around town and funds were raised to support the families. The community also organized events to keep attention on the investigation, believing that widespread awareness might lead to a breakthrough. Press conferences during 2017 emphasized both the progress and the challenges of the investigation. Officials stated repeatedly that the case was active, that evidence was being pursued, and that no detail was too small to report. They stressed patience, urging the public to allow investigators time to process leads carefully. The early investigation established several important points. First, law enforcement believed the murders were not random, but targeted, though they did not disclose specific reasons. Second, the evidence from Libby's phone was considered central to identifying the suspect. Third, investigators were confident that someone in the community either knew or suspected the identity of the man seen in the images and heard in the audio. Despite the challenges, authorities emphasized determination. They made it clear that the case would not be forgotten or set aside. From February 2017 onward, the Delphi murders became not only a tragedy for two families, but a test of persistence for law enforcement and a subject of deep concern for communities far beyond Indiana. Public appeals and sketch releases. From the beginning, public involvement was a cornerstone of the Delphi murder investigation. Authorities emphasized that solving the case required both professional law enforcement work and the eyes and ears of the community. This strategy led to several highly publicized appeals, including the release of multiple suspect sketches. The first major appeal occurred on February 15, 2017, just days after the discovery of Libby, German and Abigail Williams. Investigators released still images captured from Libby's phone, showing a man walking on the Monon High Bridge. These grainy photographs were distributed nationwide, accompanied by the audio clip of the suspect saying, "Down the hill." The hope was that someone would recognize the man's clothing, gait, or voice. As tips poured in, the Indiana State Police and FBI began working with composite artists. On July 17, 2017, authorities unveiled the first official sketch. This image depicted a middle-aged man with a heavier build, goatee, and cap. The sketch quickly spread across news outlets, billboards, and social media. Law enforcement made it clear that this representation was based on eyewitness accounts from individuals who were in the area around the time of the murders. For nearly 2 years, this initial sketch defined public perception of the suspect. Thousands of tips came in from across the United States. Many people submitted names of acquaintances, co-workers, or strangers who resembled the drawing. Law enforcement followed up on numerous leads but announced no arrests. Then, in a surprising turn, investigators released a second sketch on April 22, 2019, during a press conference. This image depicted a younger man with no facial hair, thinner features, and a different hairstyle. Officials stated that this sketch was actually drawn in 2017, around the same time as the first, but had not been the focus of public distribution. Indiana State Police explained that they now believe the second sketch represented the prime suspect. The release of the new image caused confusion and debate. Many questioned why 2 sketches looked so different and how the shift in investigative focus came about. Law enforcement clarified that both sketches were valid representations, but based on different witness perspectives. They stressed that the investigation was fluid and that evidence led them to reconsider which image was most accurate. Despite the uncertainty, the new sketch renewed public interest. National media covered the update extensively, and true crime communities reignited discussions online. Law enforcement reiterated appeals for tips, urging the public to pay attention to behavior changes in people they knew around February 2017. Investigators specifically asked whether anyone had noticed unexplained absences, changes in appearance, or unusual interest in the case. Along with sketches, public appeals included reward offers. Early in the investigation, donations from the community and outside supporters created a reward fund of more than $200,000 for information leading to an arrest and conviction. Authorities highlighted the fund repeatedly in press briefings. The sketches, audio, and public outreach campaigns became central elements of the Delphi investigation. They demonstrated both the opportunities and challenges of relying on public involvement. While tips generated enormous amounts of information, much of it required time-consuming review and ultimately did not produce immediate answers. By 2019, the investigation remained active, but without resolution. The sketches symbolized the uncertainty of the case, reminding the public that identifying the man on the bridge was the key to solving the murders of Libby and Abigail. Suspects, persons of interest, and rumors. As the Delphi investigation unfolded, authorities examined numerous individuals who were suggested by the public or surfaced through investigative leads. While law enforcement emphasized that thousands of tips required evaluation, a few names became widely associated with the case in media reporting. In every instance, officials reminded the public that rumor and speculation were not substitutes for verified evidence. One of the first individuals to draw attention was Daniel Nations, a Colorado man arrested in September 2017 on unrelated charges. Nations had been accused of threatening people with a hatchet on a hiking trail, and his mugshot bore some resemblance to the first composite sketch. For a period, public discussion focused heavily on whether he might be the man on the bridge. Indiana authorities acknowledged investigating Nations, but by early 2018 they stated he was no longer considered a suspect in the Delphi case. Another figure was Paul Etter, an Indiana resident wanted in connection with a separate crime involving kidnapping and sexual assault in 2019. Etter died by suicide during a police standoff in June of that year. Because of the seriousness of his alleged offenses and his geographic proximity, some speculated about a connection to Delphi. Indiana State Police later confirmed there was no evidence linking Etter to the murders of Libby German and Abigail Williams. Attention also turned to Keegan Kline, a man from Peru, Indiana, who was arrested in 2020 on multiple charges of child exploitation and possession of child pornography. Investigators revealed that Kline had created a fake social media profile under the name Anthony Shots, posing as a teenage boy to communicate with underage girls. Court documents indicated that Libby had interacted with this account prior to her death. This revelation caused widespread public concern about whether the catfishing scheme might have played a role in the case. Authorities clarified that while Kline was being investigated for his own crimes, they had not charged him with involvement in the Delphi murders. They also confirmed that the Anthony Shots profile remained an active line of inquiry. Throughout these developments, law enforcement stressed that many persons of interest had been reviewed and cleared. The investigation generated an enormous volume of rumors, particularly online. True crime communities on platforms such as Reddit and Facebook speculated extensively about possible suspects, motives, and connections. While some discussions were grounded in publicly available evidence, others spread misinformation that complicated the work of investigators. Officials repeatedly urged the public to rely only on verified press conferences and official updates. The FBI provided significant assistance during this period, including investigative support, forensic analysis, and behavioral profiling. Their involvement underscored the seriousness of the case and the level of resources being dedicated. Despite the lack of an arrest, Indiana State Police and the Carroll County Sheriff's Office consistently emphasized their commitment to pursuing every lead. Family members of the victims also played a role in clarifying public understanding. They encouraged tips but discouraged speculation that might harm the investigation. The families emphasized their trust in law enforcement and their desire to see justice served through proper legal channels. By 2021, no suspect had been publicly named or charged in connection with the murders. The case remained unsolved, but the names of Nations Etter and Klein stood out as examples of how individuals became subjects of scrutiny before ultimately being dismissed or left uncharged in relation to the killings. Each development kept the case in national headlines, but also highlighted the challenges of balancing transparency with the need to protect evidence. The investigation into potential suspects demonstrated both the scale of the public's interest and the complexity of law enforcement's task. Sorting through rumors, verifying facts, and maintaining focus on credible leads required patience and persistence. While the true identity of the man on the bridge remained unknown during these years, the groundwork laid by these efforts ultimately contributed to the breakthrough that followed. Breakthrough: Arrest of Richard Allen, 2022. After more than 5 years without an arrest, a significant development came in October 2022 when Indiana State Police announced the arrest of Richard Matthew Allen in connection with the murders of Libby German and Abigail Williams. The news marked a major breakthrough in one of the state's most closely followed investigations. Richard Allen was a 50-year-old resident of Delphi at the time of his arrest. He worked as a licensed pharmacy technician at the local CVS, a store familiar to many in the small community. Allen had lived in Carroll County for years and was considered by acquaintances to be an ordinary member of the town. His quiet presence and long-term residency surprised many when his name was publicly connected to the case. On October 28, 2022, Allen was taken into custody and formally charged with 2 counts of murder. He appeared in court shortly after, where prosecutors outlined the basis of their case. Court documents revealed that Allen had admitted to investigators that he was present on the Monon High Bridge Trail on February 13, 2017, at the time the girls disappeared. Search warrants were executed at Allen's home in Delphi. During the investigation, law enforcement collected clothing and other items for forensic analysis. One key detail disclosed in a probable cause affidavit was that an unspent bullet found near the crime scene was forensically linked to a firearm owned by Allen. The connection was made through ballistics testing, which investigators argued tied Allen's weapon to the evidence recovered in 2017. Authorities stated that Allen had never previously been named as a suspect publicly, though his proximity to the crime scene and later forensic connections became central to the charges. The arrest demonstrated that the case had remained active despite long periods without visible developments. The news of Allen's arrest spread rapidly across the country. Press conferences were held in Delphi, where law enforcement confirmed the charges but maintained that certain details would remain sealed to protect the integrity of the case. Officials emphasized that while Allen had been charged, the investigation was still ongoing, and additional evidence would be presented in court. Community reaction was a mixture of relief and shock. Residents expressed surprise that someone who had lived openly in the town for years was now accused of committing such a crime. Many people noted that Allen's workplace and home were in close proximity to the families of the victims and other community members. For the families of Libby and Abby, the arrest was a long-awaited development, though they acknowledged the trial process still lay ahead. The arrest also raised questions about how Allen had gone undetected for so long. Law enforcement explained that the investigation had always been complex, and that piecing together evidence required time and persistence. They did not provide details about why Allen was not publicly connected earlier, but reiterated confidence in the evidence leading to the charges. Allen's arrest marked a turning point in the Delphi case. For the first time since 2017, there was a named individual formally accused of the murders. The announcement did not end public interest, but instead shifted focus to the legal proceedings and the evidence that would be presented in court. The arrest demonstrated both the challenges of long-term investigations and the determination of authorities to pursue justice for Libby German and Abigail Williams. Court proceedings and pretrial developments. Following Richard Allen's arrest in October 2022, the focus of the Delphi murders shifted from investigation to the courtroom. The legal process surrounding Allen's case has been lengthy, marked by multiple hearings, motions, and debates over evidence. Allen was formally charged with 2 counts of murder under Indiana's felony murder statute. During his initial hearing, he pleaded not guilty. The court entered a gag order restricting attorneys, law enforcement, and family members from making public statements about the case. This was done to protect the integrity of the trial and prevent widespread speculation from influencing potential jurors. One of the first details revealed in the probable cause affidavit was the discovery of an unspent .40 caliber bullet near the crime scene. Forensic analysis linked this round to a pistol owned by Allen. Investigators stated that testing showed the bullet had been cycled through Allen's Sig Sauer handgun, which was seized from his home during the search. Prosecutors presented this ballistic evidence as a critical connection, tying Allen to the crime scene. Defense attorneys challenged the strength of this evidence. They argued that ballistics testing can be subjective, and that the link between the bullet and the firearm was not definitive. They also emphasized that Allen had cooperated with law enforcement, admitting he had been on the Monon High Bridge Trail the day of the murders, but denying involvement in the killings. The defense later filed multiple motions, including requests for additional discovery, challenges to the admissibility of evidence, and motions to relocate the trial outside of Carroll County due to extensive pretrial publicity. The judge agreed to move jury selection to Allen County while keeping the trial itself in Carroll County. In late 2022, the court released redacted versions of the probable cause affidavit and charging documents. These provided the public with more information, but withheld sensitive details. The partial transparency was intended to balance public interest with the need to preserve the defendant's right to a fair trial. The case encountered further complications in 2023, when Allen's defense attorneys claimed he was being mistreated in prison. They alleged his health was deteriorating due to restrictive conditions. Prosecutors countered that the measures were necessary for security, given the high-profile nature of the case. The judge ultimately ordered Allen to remain in custody while allowing periodic reviews of his conditions. Later in 2023, Allen's defense team filed a controversial motion suggesting alternative theories about the murders, including possible involvement of others. The prosecution strongly objected, calling the claims speculative and unsupported. The judge struck down portions of these filings, reminding both sides that evidence presented in court must meet legal standards of admissibility. By 2024, pretrial proceedings continued, with hearings focusing on expert witnesses, forensic testing, and admissibility of statements. The defense sought to suppress some evidence, while prosecutors argued that all investigative work had been lawfully conducted. Both sides prepared for what is expected to be one of Indiana's most closely watched trials in recent history. As of 2025, Richard Allen remains in custody awaiting trial. No conviction or acquittal has been reached. The case continues to generate national media attention, and updates are followed closely by true crime communities and the general public alike. The courtroom process has been slow, but every hearing underscores the gravity of the charges and the importance of ensuring a fair legal outcome. Media coverage and public reaction. From the beginning, the Delphi murders drew significant attention from local, national, and even international media. The shocking nature of 2 young girls being killed in a small town, coupled with the release of video and audio evidence, made the case unusual and widely covered. News outlets such as CNN, NBC, ABC, and CBS reported regularly on developments, and regional papers in Indiana followed the investigation closely. The case also became a subject of extensive discussion within the true crime community. Podcasts, YouTube channels, and online forums dedicated entire series to the investigation. Programs like Crime Junkie and other popular podcasts featured in-depth episodes, while true crime creators on platforms such as Reddit and YouTube analyzed every press conference, sketch release, and court filing. This attention helped keep the case in the public eye for years, even during periods with few official updates. The release of the two different sketches in 2017 and 2019 generated widespread debate and criticism of law enforcement's communication strategy. Some questioned why the second sketch was held back for 2 years, while others defended investigators' decision to keep certain details confidential. These discussions reflected both public interest and frustration with the slow progress of the investigation. Families of Libby German and Abigail Williams remained central to the narrative. They spoke at vigils, participated in media interviews, and expressed both grief and determination to see justice served. Their willingness to share memories of the girls kept the victims' lives at the forefront, rather than allowing the case to be defined only by the investigation and the suspect. The arrest of Richard Allen in 2022 reignited national attention. Major television networks covered the press conferences live, and newspapers across the United States published front-page stories. Public reaction was mixed: relief that an arrest had finally been made, and shock that the accused was a longtime Delphi resident who had lived openly in the community. The courtroom proceedings also attracted heavy coverage. Journalists reported on every motion, filing, and hearing, while online commentators analyzed court documents line by line. The gag order in place frustrated many reporters, but was accepted as necessary to maintain fairness in the trial process. Beyond media coverage, the case sparked broader conversations about safety, technology, and justice. Libby's decision to record on her phone was widely recognized as courageous, leading to discussions about how digital evidence is changing investigations. The public also debated issues such as forensic reliability, online predation, and the pressures on small-town law enforcement facing international scrutiny. Overall, the media and public reaction to the Delphi murders demonstrate how a single case can resonate far beyond its community. The balance between respectful remembrance of the victims, demand for transparency, and interest in criminal justice has kept this case in the spotlight for more than 8 years. The ongoing case and unanswered questions. As of 2025, the Delphi murder case remains active within the Indiana court system. Richard Allen is awaiting trial, charged with 2 counts of murder in the deaths of Libby German and Abigail Williams. While the arrest in 2022 marked a turning point, the legal process has not yet delivered a final resolution. Several unanswered questions continue to shape public discussion. One of the most persistent involves the 2 composite sketches released in 2017 and 2019. Investigators have explained that both sketches remain relevant, but the differences between them remain unclear to many observers. Whether the sketches represent different witnesses, perspectives of the same person, or potentially more than one individual, has not been fully explained in open court. Another area of interest involves the Anthony Shots social media profile linked to Keegan Kline. Documents confirmed that Libby communicated with this catfishing account before her death. Law enforcement has stated that the investigation into the profile is ongoing, though no charges have directly connected it to the murders. The relationship between the online activity and the events of February 13, 2017, remains a subject of speculation and careful scrutiny. Questions also persist about whether Richard Allen acted alone. While prosecutors have charged him as the sole perpetrator, filings and defense motions have raised the possibility of other individuals being involved or aware of the crime. As of now, no one else has been formally charged, but investigators continue to state that the case is still open to additional leads. The community of Delphi has worked to preserve the memory of Libby and Abby. A memorial park was created in their honor, featuring softball fields, trails, and spaces for gathering. Annual events and vigils continue, ensuring that the girls' lives are remembered beyond the tragedy. Their families have remained vocal about seeking justice while also emphasizing the importance of honoring who Libby and Abby were as individuals. Nationally, the case has influenced conversations about public safety, digital evidence, and the role of citizen interest in ongoing investigations. Libby's decision to record video and audio of the suspect demonstrated how personal technology can provide crucial evidence. It also highlighted the challenges investigators face in managing overwhelming volumes of public tips generated by widespread media attention. The unanswered questions leave the Delphi case suspended between progress and uncertainty. The arrest of Richard Allen provides a path forward through the courts, but many details will only be revealed as evidence is presented at trial. Until then, speculation continues, though investigators consistently urge the public to rely only on verified updates. The story of Libby German and Abigail Williams is not only about a crime, but also about resilience and persistence. Their families, their community, and law enforcement agencies have worked for years to keep attention on the case. Even as the legal process moves slowly, the determination to find truth and accountability remains strong. As of today, the final chapter of the Delphi murders has not yet been written. The outcome of the trial will decide whether Richard Allen is held responsible. Regardless of the verdict, the case will remain one of the most closely followed examples of a small-town tragedy that captured national attention and reshaped conversations about justice in America.